to the Equestrian Experience, a show where we talk about what happens behind the rosettes and what we've tried so that you don't have to. In a world first, we and our guests openly share what we know from our extensive equestrian experience. This includes our exclusive access to our global experts such as high-performance national vets, coaches, farriers, and even brands. If you're new here, consider subscribing. We're your hosts, Amanda Ross and Bex Mason, and today we're talking to a fellow Aussie who's now based all the way up in the Netherlands, Tristan Tucker of the TRT Method. Welcome, Tristan, and hey, Bex, how are you two?
Really well. Welcome, Tristan.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's already been an interesting start because we're all trying to navigate our new daylight saving times, so it's great to have you both here. And Tristan, I don't think the last time I might have seen you, I may have taught you at Pony Club back in the Mentone Pony Club days. And unfortunately, that was a long, long time ago for both of us. But
yeah, that was way back when.
Yeah, absolutely. So far, look, we've talked to a number of professionals about how we can make sure our horses are as happy as possible. And I think this really is your thing. So you've developed the TRT method. And as I mentioned, started in Australia, have now set up in the Netherlands. Can you tell me a little bit about how that happened and what the TRT method involves?
How it happened. How long is this podcast?
In short format.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Bullet point.
Well, of course, I grew up like most Aussie kids doing Pony Club, Mentone Pony Club, to be precise, and did the games and jumping, eventing, and all the rest of it. And my mother was working in a racing stable, so I was sort of brought up with the horses. And I then went on to, I was eventing actually at the time, and there was a trainer that came from Denmark that had contact with, one of my great mentors in Morten Thompson. And he was looking for a young guy that could come and ride the young horses and the stallions and work with him and learn. So, I then went there in the end of 99, beginning of 2000. I was there for a year. And then I came home and I did an arts degree. So I did the right thing, finished university, and then put that on the back burner and went back to the horses. So in my learning time with Morten was a real eye-opener. He's been a great mentor for me on many levels, and he really opened my eyes to what was possible with horses. And so that sort of made that first connection to Europe, and then I was sort of traveling backwards and forwards for a month here and there. And then I decided that I needed to come to Europe for a period of 2 years. So the plan was for 2 years, and I brought 3 horses with me. And that was, 15 odd years ago.
Wow.
And you ended up staying, was it the horses that kept you there, or was it the wife that kept you there?
Well, it's definitely the unhealthy addiction. I had a very good business in Australia. I had also some great people helping me in Australia. Jim and Emmy, who you know from Heatherton Park, I worked there for quite some time and working young horses. And I started my own stable and I had my own property. And I had, as long as my arm for horses to come in training, and I was kind of living the dream, working horses in the morning and surfing in the afternoon. But I sort of could see that was my map. It was already kind of made for me, and there was not going to be anything to further inspire me. I could kind of see what I was going to be doing for the next 10, 15, 20, 25 years. So I just thought, I have to chase more opportunities and more experiences, and to be in Europe then, of course, also in the sport of dressage, then you put yourself really in the middle of everything. And so, that's how I came. And of course, I was first in Denmark for quite some time, and then I started to build a business there and worked for Morten for quite some time, and then started getting a lot of requests through Morten's stable. And Morten's still to this day traveling and training all the best riders in the world. So he is very busy with his passion, and that sort of, then gave me the opportunity to branch out, and I was doing, had my own stable there, a few stables in Denmark, and then I started doing a lot of clinics and demonstrations and asked to do shows and performances and masterclasses at competitions. And then that sort of grew, and then I was traveling backwards and forwards. At that time, I was training with someone here in the Netherlands, so I was sort of driving at a training stable in Denmark, and then trying to take 3-4 days off, and I'd drive all the way to the Netherlands and do 3-4 days with 2 horses, train and come back. And then I had quite some clinics and demos in around Belgium and France, and it sort of made sense to be more Central Europe. So then I made the move here to the Netherlands.
Right. So you've mentioned that you're obviously a high-level dressage rider, but tell us exactly what you're doing in those demonstrations and what is the core of your work? Because it's not just straight dressage.
No, it's the clinics, or the TRT method is simply about understanding the horse. And I sort of made this shift through personal development and also developing myself through the horses and having awareness of what I was doing myself and what the horses had given me. And, you start with riding and training and developing yourself as a rider, and then you realize there's much more to it than that. And then I realized it's more about, understanding yourself through the horses and being the best mentor you can for the horse, and trying to teach really the horses. I'm not the trainer that's teaching someone how to control their horse. I'm teaching people how to teach their horses to be in control of themselves. So building that self-management system in the horse and giving them the opportunity to understand the world they're born into, what their purpose is, how they can have self-generated learning abilities, the feeling of achievement, purpose, all these sort of things. And that's been my journey in developing dressage horses. And then, of course, you get into that passion deeply and you want to help others. And then you develop this method, this way of working, and then...
Just saying, what I love about your method that you've developed is you always seem to be able to strip everything right back to the beginning and take it from the very basics. I mean, do you find when a horse arrives at your stables that you go through everything from its tack to its shoes to its bitting and start at the very beginning?
Well, when the horses first come in, I just see them naked, nothing on. And then the person that is owning the horse is first bringing the horse into the arena, and then I just start to read the biography, the previous memory, experience, emotion to a certain event, how that character is, how the dynamic is in the relationship between the horse and the owner. And then you start to read the past and what's happened in the past.
Yeah.
And not that that matters for the future, but it gives you an idea of where your starting point is. And all of the horse's experiences are held within their body. It's the same like us. We carry our experiences physically, mentally, emotionally with us. And some of those experiences are not pleasant ones, and you have to be able to relieve them of those things first. So as you go through that diagnosis, being able to diagnose their history and what they're carrying with them, it gives you an idea of the starting point, but also what their capabilities are. Do they have, physical hindrances that are stopping them from excelling and growing and performing as they should? And so you have to start there, because of course if the horse has a physical or emotional or mental disability that's stopping them, you first have to work through those things to begin to go forward.
Excellent. So it's all about stripping it back and being able to look at the past to be able to make it more successful for the future. One other great thing about what it is that you do, you've made it to such a wide audience by making all your teaching methods go online. How did that come about? Because I know that I've thought about doing some lessons and things online. It's not quite as simple as you'd first think, is it?
No. Well, it was my colleague, Connie Lundström. She is the mastermind behind all the digital side.
Yeah.
and everything else that goes with having an online business. She's an absolute genius in what she does, and she'd actually was hounding me for quite a few years. She was putting on master classes. It was called Part and Lifestyle, Horse and Lifestyle, where she'd invite a lot of different trainers, and then you'd have a day where people could come and see different master classes and have a nice lunch and talk to a lot of horse people and have a day out.
Oh, fabulous.
And I did quite a few of those for her, and then we sort of got talking, and we connected also on a very basic personal level, where we had sort of similar morals. We're both highly driven and kind of slightly insane in many areas. So that sort of clicked with us. And in the beginning, it was sort of talking about DVDs and, things like that. People had brought out DVDs in the past, and of course, everything's moving so quickly. And she'd already had some things that she was building online, and she'd sort of approached me quite a few times over the years, and me being a horse trainer and not getting my act together, it took me a few years before we said, oh yeah, okay, let's do this. And then, we sort of had no clue, and of course, you review what you're doing with giving lessons and giving clinics, but to actually put something in a structure that enables people to start by watching a video and learn something and be able to take from it and go to the stable and actually put it into practice, takes quite some thought. And of course, you don't know how people are going to receive it, or if that learning process or method is actually going to work. So in the beginning, we just sort of put it out there, and we've been going 6 years now. And I think the first sort of 4 years, we had a few thousand students already, which we thought was amazing, and actually we have also a Q&A once a month. And in the first couple of years, I was doing the Q&A thinking, God, these people are getting quite good. These people are better than the people I give a lesson to every week. What's going on?
Oh, wow.
Am I that bad at giving lessons, or what? But of course, then we went right into the research of why these people were having so much achievement. And I think it's also to do with that separation of not listening, doing, multitasking as you would on a lesson, but you actually put focused time without distraction into observing, looking, absorbing in your own way, in your own time. You can rewind it a bit, you can watch it back, you can then go and then be very present in that moment with your horse, and only thinking about the past things that you've already visualized and heard and watched. And then if you are brilliant and it works first time, you can go back for the next step, or if you get stuck, you can immediately go back again. And we have such a large community now. We were sort of 6,000 in the beginning of Corona, and then it sort of jumped to 10,000 a week in, and then sort of after the middle of 2020, then we were at 20,000, and now we're at 30,000. A little over 37,000 full-time students.
I saw you've got 30,000 students. That is just incredible. Yeah. So it's obviously working out there for all these people that are taking part. I mean, I've followed you on Instagram, and it is just so interesting. A lot of it does make perfect sense, but to have somebody put it in video form and to be able to just speak it in black and white words, it's just a great thing to be able to relay back to. With the videos, do you find you're constantly making more videos, or do you think you're kind of done with that?
No, well, the thing is, now we have such an amazing community. You get so much information, and of course, when you're making the videos, you're doing your thing, and then you think you're going through all the steps that are necessary, and then you watch back. We have a sort of built-in community page, which is like a internal Facebook, which is a great thing because it's a very safe environment. Everybody in the community is there for the same reason. They're really supportive. There's no sort of normal social media difficulties of comments and hatred and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So you have this community that really supports each other, and we have the monthly challenges, and we have the Q&As, and then you get to start to see what people are doing, what people are taking from the videos. And there's a lot of things you do unconsciously, and then you might be like, oh, they missed that bit. We need to make a video on that bit so that they go smoother into the next step, or there needs to be better things in the groundwork before they transition to the riding. And then, of course, there's, with such a large community doing, there's like more than 64 different countries, and horse people from, the regular disciplines, but also horse people doing all kinds of stuff. When you're sitting there and you see some guy in Qatar or in the Middle East, in the middle of the desert with his Arab, and he's, got the TRT halter on that you sat in the office and made yourself, and he's there, with one of your sticks, piaffing it and sort of typing in translated English to say, look what I've done. It's kind of like, what the hell? But,
how rewarding is that?
Yeah, and that's the special thing about it. You create this community of people that are just, getting so much out of that self-improvement, and doing it together is the big rewarding thing. If I'm feeling down, I just go into the community and watch what people are doing.
Yeah.
Get a little energy from it. Yeah, look at these people.
How fulfilling.
For sure.
And Tristan, could I bring any horse to do this?
Is if it has 4 legs.
Fantastic. So where would we start? So if we've got a horse that's, everyone talks about the spooky horse, and particularly with performance horses. And if you're talking about dressage, I know that having a horse that really suffers from atmosphere and comes into the arena and doesn't settle, or, spooks at the flowers or what have you, like, where do we start? If I bring that horse to you, how do we deal with that?
So the beginning part, of course, is to realize that what we've been focusing on mainly is the technical aspect of riding. We're working on the movements, exercises that are necessary to perform well in sport. And what sometimes gets lost in that is the horse and where we have to perform in, and what his toolbox is, what he's born with. And the responsibility of what we have to give him to be able to exist in a human environment, knowing that they're only born knowing how to exist in nature, and they're operating on this blueprint, this map inside their head that is born for that. The single one most important thing to them is survival, and through that they look for a position of comfort. And their survival system is made up of, be careful, this thing might kill you. So, with those flight, fight reactions and all the things we know, we have to be able to fill the gaps. So, the first thing for me is that they want to be with you. From a very small age, I remember walking in the stable and being able to reach up to the box of the racehorses that Mum was working with, and just hope that he let me touch him. That was, I wish, you reach up and you think, oh, I hope that he lets me touch, and not goes to the back of the box. And that's the beginning point for me now. Also, every time a new horse comes, I have to prove my worth. He has to want to be with me. You have to first have that moment of connection that he wants to participate, and he feels that you're worthy. You're not the mummy that's going to say everything's okay and don't worry, even when it's not. And you're not the dictator that's going to ask something of him directly without knowing him. So that part in the beginning is really important, that people take the time to say, who is my horse and what is he thinking? And if someone was to interview him, what would he say about me? So that people get a good perspective in the beginning of the relationship, what their expectations are, and the realization of appreciation is really important. And a lot of the time, when we change the perspective of the way we look at what we're doing, what we're trying to achieve, then the results also change really quickly. So before we start to change, we have to have an awareness of self before training self. That's the same for the rider as it is for the horse. And then that you really get to know them. What are their weaknesses? What are they good at? What are they not good at? What is the basic conversation in their body, which we learn in the TRT from the basic groundwork pattern. The basic groundwork pattern is to find if the horse has a connection in its body, yes or no. So are there physical weaknesses that cause him to be insecure? Is he a horse that stands like, look at me, I can walk into any room and control the situation because I can control myself? Or is it a horse that goes to turn and then goes, oh, geez, I've lost connection with myself. Oh, now there's a sponsor sign. So where is it really coming from? And if a horse can be empowered by having a good connection with himself, a good order of movement, a good conversation within his own body, which we can give him through the knowledge of what is expected of him in the human world, not in the natural world. And then we can, from there, take a body that's really confident, well connected, in a good relationship and dynamic with ourselves, and then we can teach him the single aspects of what he's going to experience and what he has to do in that situation. Because, of course, a horse that becomes nervous, insecure, is a horse that just doesn't know what to do with himself in that situation. So you're taking a horse that has the skills and the basic foundation of being empowered from himself and feeling like he can control himself, and then you start to present him with the things that he's going to be presented with in the real life situations, and then teach him what to do with himself when he's presented with something that moves, something that makes a sound, something that approaches him, something he has to approach. So those four main things. And it's the elements of those things in which we have to give them the knowledge of knowing what to do. It's not specifically, a dog or an umbrella, or he's scared of a pram, or he's, all those things have the elements of movement, touch, sound, and approach. And if they're able to understand how to manage themselves within the elements of those things, experiencing those things, then it doesn't really matter what the show organization thinks looks wonderful on the wall, or I need a bigger screen at the back of the arena.
So not in horses' nature.
Tristan, when you're working with all these horses, do you find a big difference between the sports horse, like the highly tuned athlete, or the regular happy hacker? Do they have different temperaments? Do you find different ways of training them, or does it come down to the same basic methods?
No, it's absolutely different. For of course, the thing with sport is that we are breeding horses that are more athletic, more flexible, more powerful, more expressive. And what comes with that is a higher sense of natural instinct.
Right.
So, the old Oldenburg from 20 years ago is standing in the field with the new KWPN, electric superstar. And there's a lion 20 kilometers away, and the new modern horse is already at the top of the hill, and the old Oldenburg's going, why is he running up there? And then the lion's hanging off his ass.
Yeah.
So breeding's got a lot to do with it. But there's so many elements involved, of course, from birth, what happens, what are the experiences, genetics, experiences from the mother, experience from the humans, the world is born into, the expectation of the rider, the person. There's so many different dynamics that, and that's why it's really important when you work with a horse. And that's why I sort of made the transition that I have just recently, is because I think the most important thing is the dynamic relationship between the horse and the person, and not just the horse. For men, I've had training stables now for more than 20 years and found myself becoming Harry Potter in a lot of situations. Once you're Harry Potter, it's hard not to be Harry Potter. You become a bit the mechanic. Someone sends the horse and wants you to fix it. And they're still driving like a lunatic, and you send it back and they crash it again the next week. So in the end, you're doing the horse an injustice. Yeah. So it's more, that's the most important thing, that horse and rider can develop together and have a knowledge and understanding of each other.
Yeah. I suppose that relates actually to, even when I'm, say, teaching someone, the same with Amanda, if we'll be teaching someone, or we have a horse that is highly trained and it goes to a rider that maybe wouldn't be as highly trained, then the horse will, the pegs will start to fall out. It's having the combination and training them together and making sure they're on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I've done it a lot in the past. You actually get on a horse and get it done because of your own frustrations, and and actually it's a pointless exercise in the end.
Yeah.
Because one, you make the rider probably feel more insecure and more frustrated because my trainer can just get on and do it, and why can't I? And at the end of the day, it's the combination that has to grow together and develop and become better. And that's, the most important thing about it.
It sounds really interesting. And what I love about what you're saying is that it reiterates that the whole reason that we ride horses is because we like horses and we want to have a connection and be with horses at the end of the day. And I know that there's often a big push for, parents in particular, or people want to get up the grades a little faster, and so they buy the ready-made machine, or they want to come down and ride just on the weekends and have the trainer ride the horse, during the week. And my big thing is, that if you have a horse, that you've got a duty to the horse because you chose it to do the task that you wanted it to do. It didn't choose you. And for me, it really feels like it's my duty to do the right thing, get to know the horse, try to teach it in a way that it understands. And I think what you're saying sounds very much like we need to let our egos go a lot and be more in the horse's world rather than try to draw the horse into ours and expect them to adapt. Is that kind of where we're going?
Yeah, well, for me it is. Of course, people are in horses for different reasons. Many different reasons, like you say, and I feel also a big cultural difference between young people I help in Australia, for instance, New Zealand, or here in Europe. And I think that it can be quite damaging long term for young people to be really isolated and only brought up with the focus on achievement and goals. Not that achievement and goals are a bad thing, but if that's the only focus, maybe accolades is a better word. That the whole focus here in Europe in general, of course not everybody, but in general, is that the kids are going to a riding school. First thing they're told is how to sit, how to get the horse, how to make him go into trot, how to keep him in canter, how to sit straight, where to put your hands. They're already looking at each other at a young age to see who's got the shiniest boots, and the new cap. And then it sort of goes from there, and then they start pony classes, and then, they go to junior, and, you can having kids of 8, 9 years old, and their only focus is Europeans. And the accolade and the winning and the getting better in the test, and then they get, of course, a lot of disappointments along the way. And it's also part of development in sport. But I think when you're working with an animal, in my case anyway, there's a lot of conflict in there that can be unsettling, that can take you down a path that is far, far from yourself. And I think that's the greatest thing that horses can give you, is a sense of yourself and personal development. It's a reflection of yourself through working with the horse. And I think sometimes it's better if the young people start with that and can then go into sport. Because, of course, I have a job with a lot of the professional riders I help because they didn't have that. And they get to a point of frustration, and they're having, an extremely talented horse, and it's spooky, or it's hot, or it's tense, or it nearly kills them in the prize giving ceremony, or whatever it is. And it's because they missed that bit. It's because they've only focused on the riding, the accolades, the test, the exercises, and through no fault of their own, because of course they're with trainers that have also had that. That's also been their focus.
So it's almost like they missed a big step of the journey. So they've gone from step 1 to step 6 and missed 2, 3, 4, 5. And so that's where your method is so great, because it comes back, and with the way that you've done it as well, all being online, you can go back and watch the videos again and again, and just make sure you've cemented, the foundations, which are so important in any horse's career or in their lifetime.
Yeah. That's interesting too, Tristan. You were talking about that you work with elite riders. So, when we were discussing your program, sometimes, I don't know whether some people think, oh, this is just for people that, aren't familiar with their horses or need help learning the ropes. But clearly it's not just that. So can you tell us do you have any sort of the bigger names that you've helped with their horses as well?
Yeah, a lot.
Would you say that's a big part of your work? It's not just the everyday person, it's also the elite people as well.
Yeah, it's everybody that's in horses, from horse dealers that want a quick fix because they have an amazingly talented horse they can get a lot of money for, and it's just got one little thing that's stopping them from fitting perfectly into the market, to, people on the team for the Olympics, and they call me while they're in quarantine that the horse is all of a sudden freaking out. People doing national classes and they're just wanting to learn the process of those last movements to make it from Prix St. George to Grand Prix, or Wendy down the road that is trying to ride through the forest and the horse takes off every time a bird flies up.
I know Wendy.
Yeah. But, it's an interesting thing to sort of be in that, and it's amazing where horses can take you, and the people you meet through that thing. And I find it really interesting in general, the dynamic and how people feel and operate and where their focuses are, depending on where they are and what their goals are. I remember when I was first in the Netherlands, and I had been asked to do a clinic at the Global Dressage Forum. And so this is kind of a big event where they invite, all the stakeholders and, press, and, they have a lot of famous people come and give demonstrations. And after the Global, then I'd sort of had more top riders sort of calling. And, they'd sort of call because the association with reaching out is that you've got a problem. And already if you are successful, especially in dressage, maybe not so much with the jumpers, but with dressage, everybody unconsciously has this knowledge that your image and what you perceive yourself to be is as important as the technical aspect of riding. They also feel that they have to create a certain persona to become successful, because that's how a successful person behaves. That's what they do. They get up early and they're in the gym, and then they're riding this amazing horse and this fantastic horse, and they have to post the picture of the ribbon and the score. And that's, you have to tell the judge, I won last week, so next week. So if they call and they have a problem, the first few people that, they were been on the team and they're going to qualify for something, and they call up and they'd even whisper on the phone, Tristan,
well, it's
and the first word is
to admit and to call out for help,
Alcoholics Anonymous. I have a problem. I have a dressage problem.
Yeah, but the first thing is, it's not really that I have a problem. It's just that he's just sometimes, and then you'd get a few. And what I really enjoyed to do was to put them in lessons, but put them one after the other. So they would come and, one would be there and they'd be really on the bench watching, or they'd be starting groundwork for the first time, and you put them in a total foreign situation. You take the rider off, turn around, put a rope in their hand. They have to where's my right hand? Feeling really awkward. And then the next one comes in and it's a high profile rider, and you see their face like, oh, she's here. Oh, she's going to see me, and then they see each other and they're like, oh, you're here. Oh, yeah. Oh, hi, you're here.
Yeah.
And then after a while, they sort of let go of this thing of, no, we're all actually here for the same reason. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
You've reached out because you want to get better, because you want to help your horse, because you want to overcome this difficulty, whatever it might be. And so, that was always an interesting thing. And it was nice to sort of get people to go through that process of saying, it's okay. It doesn't matter. You can be the best rider in the world that's won the most things in the world, but you're still human and you still have horses, and they're there to make us humble and to make us realize we have to continue to develop and get better. And, nobody has all the answers.
And we're still always learning.
Always.
Yeah.
If you're not always learning with horses, then there's something wrong, don't you think? And isn't that the wonderful thing about them, that you can, we constantly see people like Nick Skelton and, he's winning gold medals at 59 or something. And I mean, the fact that we can do so many years, have so many different horses and learn something different from all of them. I mean, playing tennis or being a gymnast would have been fun in your teens, but then that ends very quickly, whereas this is forever. So, I don't know, we're so lucky, really.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's very suiting, because once you get the bug, it is forever. So if at one point you couldn't do it anymore, it'd be pretty cruel.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So would you call yourself along the natural horsemanship line? And if so, because we sort of talk about natural horsemanship as groundwork. So is it all the same when you start with groundwork amongst all of the different trainers?
Did you feel that? I think the ground just trembled a bit when you said all horsemanship guys are the same. Do we just do the same? Do we just put a rope halter on and just twiddle the rope? Do they all do
That's
that
right.
in the beginning the same?
Yeah, that's right. And with a stick and a bag, the thought the same.
Yeah. Of course, it's a horse, so we're all working with the same animal, so there's going to be similarities, and there's going to be things passed down through generations that work. And that people can identify with, and that work with the basic biomechanics of a horse. And there's going to be tools that allow you to not die and be safe in those first parts. So there's going to be similarities. I think horsemanship is, natural horsemanship is, of course, just a product of a human invention that's good for marketing and good for our brain to put it in a box so you know where it is and you don't feel insecure because you don't know what it is. But, horsemanship in a sense is the focus on that, on the horse. There is things now, competitions and organizations that make horsemanship also into a sport. But in the beginning, it wasn't anything to do with sport. If you're putting rules and regulations and then you're talking about something else. Mm-hmm. But horsemanship, as a general sense, was about learning to get along with the horse and be able to understand him and teach him. And so that thing of being on the ground allows you to do that better, of course. That's the first step before he allows you to get on his back. And so I think, as you go along, there's a lot of guys that are inspired by the old guys from the past. Ray Hunt, who many people would have heard of, is the gospel to a lot of guys. He was a man that could walk on water, think, talk, and breathe horse. And there's a lot of methods passed down from these great horsemen that people, attach themselves to, and also the image, or to be a horsemanship guy a lot of the time is also about the image. It's about the cowboy. It's what you're connected to. It's where your morals sit, where you've been influenced. So that's also that association with the cowboy hat and the Wrangler jeans and the boots and the spurs, there's also that kind of thing. But I think in general, if you're looking at really the top guys, top guys like people that have real worldly experience and worked not a few hundred and not a few thousand, but really thousands and thousands of horses all over the world, all disciplines, all breeds. They're deep down in some rabbit warren that is very connected to themselves in who they are. And a lot of those guys, have gone far beyond a certain method or style or genre. So then it becomes, very individual, and it's your own perspective and feeling towards your life and what you're doing. That's why the earth shatters when you say all the horsemen guys feel it like, what? We're all the same.
Yeah.
But,
well, Since we knew you were coming on, Tristan, we've had loads of listeners that have sent in some questions. So if it's okay with you, we'll fire across some of these questions and see if you can give some answers to our listeners. So I'll start with one of them, which is, someone says, I have a 15-year-old horse who has had the same issue for years. Is he too old to learn a different way of responding to situations?
No.
Never. So it's never too old, never too late to start.
No. The good thing is the question, if he is too old, you just don't question it, because it doesn't matter if he's 2 days old, 2 years old or 20 years old. Horses have the same operating system. They're still looking for that position of comfort. And if you can provide them with the knowledge and the ability to be more comfortable within their world, then they're going to take that on and opt for that. The biggest risk is that people say, I've had this horse for a long time, he's old, he's always done that, so he's always going to be like that. And that's then the limitation, of course. I remember when I first came back from Europe, I had my old pony club horse. It was a pony. It had been with a few other kids, and he came back and was living with my mother. And I came back from Europe, and I don't know, he was 18 or something like that. And then I got home, and I started wanting to practice and learn, to, practice all the things that I learned there.
Yeah.
And he was old at that stage, and he'd been a pony club horse, and he'd, had kids hanging off him, and he was pretty stiff, and, he'd got the sort of body that protected him up until that day. And, but he learned Spanish walk, piaffe, bow, lay down, sit, all these things at that age. And that for me, many, many years back, that was the instant proof that it didn't matter how old they were. If they can have that interaction and that exchange of knowledge and conversation, that's something that a horse can't get in nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic to know. And another listener has asked if they have a yearling, like how long do they need to wait before they can start this sort of training?
If they're old enough to stand. So normally 2 days old, we start with the foals.
Oh,
really?
That's fantastic. I've got a couple of foals that we've bred this year. So, that is great to know that I can get out there in the field and spend even more time with them.
Yeah, of course, the important thing is just to be conscious of the age, how much they can do, that 30 seconds, a minute is enough for a foal that's a couple of days old, because he needs to go to mum and drink and things like that. But if you can, from the beginning, give them an understanding of their body and the connective patterns that is going to enable them to feel balance and stability at a young age. I mean, that's, and that basic interaction, how to make connection, what humans are about. It just goes from there. And it's not that you have to do every day. Most of the time we do the foals 2 or 3 times. And then again, when they're a few months old, and then they're weaned, and then maybe, 4 or 5 days when they're a yearling, and then, or a week or a couple of weeks, depending on how the character is.
Do you have a program for that we can get?
Yeah, we're doing the foal handling. We did a live event a few weeks back on foal handling, because, of course, it was at that time foals were being born here. But we're doing a whole series now of the development from birth to riding. So we'll be able to see all the steps that we take for lots of different horses, lots of different types, breeds, and characters. And we're also developing now a kids program specifically designed for the kids to have, games and goal setting and learning about that development relationship and how the horses actually are.
Oh, fabulous.
Fabulous. Yeah.
Can't wait for all of that to come out. Another question from one of our listeners. It says that I already have a trainer. Will this interfere with my regular training?
Well, a lot of the time, people come and they have, that the horse is a little bit spooky, or a little bit tense, or difficult with the flying changes, or difficulty in understanding, the basic communication. And all I say to them is, actually, if the conversation between you and your horse gets better, the conversation between the three of you is only going to improve. And if you have a good relationship with your trainer and that you have open conversation both ways, if you're not having the dictator there that's just screaming at you, telling you what to do, and you have to do it his way or else, then of course that situation is probably not going to work long term anyway.
Yeah.
But if you have a good open conversation with your trainer, you know, and you're learning more about your horse, you're just bringing more information to the group. So
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what about for people who've always been interested in the horsemanship style training, but they've got a bombproof horse? So would the bombproof horse benefit from this style of training?
you know, a lot of people say that, I didn't do TRT Method because my horse is not spooky. But, you know, the horse that doesn't want to go.
Yeah,
So not
lazy
problem together.
horse.
Yeah, or finds everything completely easy and he's totally on your page like you were born twins.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of where you can take that relationship to in being able to perform and do things together with your horse that you have not yet imagined is also possible. So it's not always about making the undesired behaviors, you know, getting rid of the undesirable behaviors, but it's all about just that relationship and where you can take it.
Yeah. So basically making anything better. It doesn't matter whether they're coming with a spooky one or a bomb-proof one. There's always a way to make a relationship even better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. God, that's absolutely fascinating. I think I'm about to put my mare in foal, and then I think we've got a 2 or 3 year old that's about to be broken in. So I'm going to subscribe, Tristan. So this is really good. By the time we've got the foal videos out, Bex, you'll be ready to go with the foal videos.
I will be too. I totally will. I've got my 2 foals and I've got a 2-year-old, so I can't wait to get online and have a look and check it all out.
Oh, good. Look forward to see you there.
Yeah, for sure.
And finally, before we go, do you have any really memorable, wonderful moments from your student feedback? Does anything really sort of stand out that was a really proud student moment or funny student moment for you?
Oh, I have them every day. I have them every day.
Love it.
That's great.
I mean, there's so many. It's really difficult because
There's not one
they're
that
all
sticks
from
out.
it's all from all levels. You know, I have actually a student now that's really inspiring. He's inspiring for a lot of people through what he's achieving. He's inspiring for me because of the way he's going about it. It's a young boy. Young boy. He's a young rider. Martin Lote, he's a Dutch boy. And he came to me with a horse that was extremely horse shy. And not, you know, just a little, oh, there's a horse, like, you know, split second, 100 mile an hour, blind running kind of deal. And he was already competing. And I mean, he's gone on to he won the Europeans, the last Europeans, and also the one just gone, 3 golds. He won first time young riders in Aachen, you know, wow. And he's won everything I think he's been in this year, and not by a little, you know, by 10% or more. And, you know, he's having this rise of fame and but the biggest inspiring thing for me is that he, you know, a lot of people would have said to him, what are you doing? You know, get rid of this horse. You have so much talent. Why are you wasting your time? He probably questioned himself along the way too, you know, what should I carry on with this, you know, and then reaching out to me, you know, on the outer circle of the people that are surrounding him in sport, and then, you know, taking that initiative and saying, no, this is what my horse needs, and doing the work and practicing it. And I remember I was at one of the qualifications. I was riding the normal Grand Prix and he was doing the young rider. I think it was qualification for the Europeans. And I was driving in with the horse truck down the driveway and I could see somebody way at the back going through a groundwork pattern. I was like, it's interesting. Must be a member there. And then I noticed it was Martin, and he'd taken the horse. And, you know, so he wasn't just there in the lesson and doing the exercises when he was in the lesson and constantly coming and practicing and developing and get, being really keen and wanting to know all the answers. But away from that, he was, coaches and things were saying, come, you have to get on warm up. And he's saying, no, I first have to go and do my mantra and do my groundwork.
Implementing the work and putting it
Yeah.
into action.
Yeah. And that at the end of the day for me is more, especially when he's in an environment where nobody else, and he's young. So, when you're young and impressionable, and then you can easily just go along and do what everyone else is doing. And if your mentors are the people that are helping you to develop in the sport, national coaches and things like that, and you have to still do your own thing because that's good for your horse. That is, and so, he will go a long way. Of course, he has a lot of amazing list of accolades already, but the fact that he has given his horse really, truly what she needed and really done his horse justice, that is the real hero in the story.
Yeah.
It's very open-minded and very courageous for someone so young, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. On a horse that I think 99% of even the top riders in the world would go, oh, I'm not, why would I, death by running.
Definitely, wow.
Yeah.
We'll definitely be looking that one up because that just sounds incredible. What an achievement. And imagine what this guy will be able to do if he's so young now and he develops his skills in the next 10, 20, 30 years. It'd be wonderful for that to filter through the system to all of the other young riders, and hopefully he's a role model for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it's also what's great about next generation, is they come in and they can find, it's one of the most important things, I think, first you have to have a vision, creating that vision of what you truly want to become, not what you want to achieve or what you want to win or what you want to be doing, but really who you want to become. And then finding that mentor that really suits you. It may not be someone that's, won everything or has got a big cabinet of medals, but someone that you really connect with, on a relationship level, and that you can have someone that can bring you in, that the people now don't have to start out the back of Nanagoon somewhere, letting racehorses take off with them, to sort of get the knowledge to know not to do all that stupid stuff. They can step in at a good level. They don't have to path the wave with a pick and a chisel to make a pathway to some kind of horsemanship career. They can step in at a good level, but, having that vision and then finding a mentor that's going to really fit you for who you are and where you want to go. That's an exciting thing for the next generation of horse people.
I just love it how you talk about finding your path and finding your purpose, because that's something that you really have done, is finding your purpose and helping the equestrian world and helping people just get on that journey with their horses to make it a successful one.
Yeah, sometimes you trip over it and sometimes you can't escape it, but if you have a purpose, it's really important.
Isn't it? Gets you out of bed absolutely every morning. Oh, well, that's amazing, Tristan. Before you go, I just want to mention how funny I find Brett kidding. So I have been watching your videos for quite some time and came across Brett kidding. And for those that haven't seen it, Tristan dresses up and is mic'd up and does a dressage test on that horse. Is amazing. You've trained him. He must just be so wonderful to work with. And basically Tristan does the dressage test and you hear what's going on in the mind of probably the rider that's like, not fearful, but oh my God, trying to pee off on the horse's halting. Like, it's just gold. So where did Brett come from?
Yeah, well, you've actually let a lot of people down, Amanda. People think that Brett's a real person. Now they...
Oh, oh no, you've let the secret out.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Quick, edit that bit out.
Yeah. No, well, it's a funny story. I had done a big string of clinics. I do a lot of clinics for the German Federation, and I was doing a lot of regional clinics. So you go to all the different regions in Germany, and then I'm giving clinics to the coaches from all the disciplines. so vaulting and jumping, dressage, eventing. And, you know, I'd done quite a long string of those, and that can be pretty, you know, when you're deep in Westphalia in Germany at 7 a.m. and it's cold, you know, and there's a lot of highly professional people that have worked very hard to get to where they are. And then some Aussie guy comes in and, you know, tries to tell you what the horse is, how to train a horse. And, you know, they're standing with the long trench coat and the hat and smoking the pipe and looking over the glasses at you. And you sort of almost have to set your ass on fire and do a triple black flip to kind of get them to go, so I'd sort of been in this very serious environment, and I then was asked to come to the dressage convention with Carl Hester and Richard Davison. And they're pretty, you know, I get along very well with Carl and Richard, and they're very easygoing guys, and they sort of give me pretty much free rein. So they hold this large convention, and Carl does some demonstrations, and Richard also, and they have some special guest trainers come in, and they just said, we'll give you some slots, and can you come and then do a bit Q&A and sit on the panel with us, and blah, 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 sort of a rough outline. I said, oh yeah, no worries. It sounds like a lot of fun. And I was just thinking, I'd been going on this long trail of serious conversation, and this is how a horse is, you know, thinking. And these young horses, this is why they're freaking out. This is the lead up to this is what's causing this. And this is how you have to see it. And, you know, it was kind of repeating the same auto recall all the time. And I needed a laugh, and I just thought there's got to be a way. And a good friend of mine, Will Rogers, also here in Europe, he's building actually an amazing Liberty team now, doing amazing things in near Warendorf in Germany. And we worked together for a long time, and we often talk on the phone and, you know, sort of make the Aussie banter about things we experience in Europe, you know.
Yeah.
Or we'd been to a competition and it was a total disaster, and then we sort of take the piss out of each other about that situation and what we would have been thinking. And I was thinking of all those clinics in Germany, and then, of course, there was going to be a lot of Grand Prix riders at this convention, and I thought, there's got to be a way that I can say the things that we're all thinking, but nobody dares to say. And so I wanted it to be comical, and I'd thought about how Mr. Bean had sort of created this mark, and that amazing story, you know, about Rowan Atkinson and Mr. Bean, and just that comedy is really genius. And I thought that's also the way, when I strip things back, that I learned. You know, I'm not a very academic person from nature, and I learned most of the things through humor, you know, and I would have things stick in my brain when I would make a joke about it. And it also, in my clinics, I have tried to have a lot of humor, because it also breaks down barriers. People start to let go, they uncross the arms, they don't have this preconceived idea about themselves because they can laugh. And so I tried to make this ridiculous character. A lot of people think it was inspired by Heath Ryan with the top hat and the hair, but it was just that I went into a dress-up shop and just found a wig and found a hat, and then that just became my outfit. And I created this character called John Not a Clue.
Oh, nice.
And then I'd gone onto the internet and I'd listened to a lot of Carl's clinics, and I tried to perfect this British accent. And then we got to the show and everything, and I sort of thought, I'm just going to ride through a Grand Prix and then just talk about funny situations in each exercise that you'd be thinking about. And then of course, we had a small brief and a g'day, and then I was getting ready and I was out the back and I got dressed up, and then I walked to the stable, and Carl and Richard were there, and they were like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then
Okay.
I was like, "Oh yeah, it's just going to do a little funny sketch before the serious stuff." "Oh yeah, so tell us, what is it?" I said, "Oh, I got this character, John, not a clue." And they said, "And you're going to do it in an English accent?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "You can't do that here. You can't be taking the piss out of the English here." And I was like, "Oh." He said, no, you have to do it in an Aussie accent. You have to be an Aussie." And I was like, "Oh yeah, righto." And then Carl said, what's a real Aussie name?" And Carl says, "Oh, what about Brett?" And then and Richard said, "Are you kidding? You got to be kidding." And then he said, "That's it, Brett Gidding." So actually, Carl and Richard sort of came up with the answer, and then I just had to make the switch in the 20 minutes walking to the stable and getting on the horse. So that's what my view was going to be. And then I just actually played it out, that I thought, what do we think? In the warm-up, I was already talking, like, "Come on, Marge, we got to get the boots," like all the stress, and is my head straight, and blah, blah, blah. And then I walked in the arena, and the first thing, not focus, you see someone famous. "Oh, shit, there's Carl." Oh. Put a bit of pressure on myself. And then I just went through the motions of the test and just said what came to mind, and that was the birth of Brett Gidding.
Oh, that's so fantastic.
And since
how that character was born.
Yeah, but and since then, it's funny because people have sent amazing messages of, all the, professional writers saying, "I thought those exact things in the test, and I thought I was the only one that was thinking that." I've been in that situation, and then I think Brett could have done. He did 2 World Cup finals. He went all the way to Omaha. Did the World Cup final there. Isabel Worth had a clinic, and I had a masterclass, and Brett Gidding was the first rider of the freestyle at the World Cup final there. He did London Olympia,
Fantastic.
Of course. He rode his first freestyle at London Olympia at the farewell for Vallegro. It was a full house. So he's been at the World Young Horse Championships, and and the funny thing is none of the organisers sort of put any restrictions. They just sort of say, "Oh, can you come and do that Brett thing?" And then one part of me goes, "Oh."
Yeah. Oh my God, awesome.
Write the script for the, World Young Horse Championships going in the break, and get to just spiel off whatever you want.
That's insane and so much fun.
They give you like this free ticket in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the good thing is it's sort of, everybody just can identify with it, and it's also that thing of that you can also, I have an amazing horse. Like he was a horse that came, he was damaged and quite naughty, and he was, had a lot of stage fright. He was petrified in the competitions and a lot of nerves and things. And a horse that'll really pull your pants down, everything's going perfect at home, and then you go in the ring and just like, And so I started to do the Brett thing, and then he sort of just, everybody loved him no matter what he did. He didn't have to be perfectly accurate in the corner. We could, just, he didn't have to have that discipline, that intensity, that expectation. And he just blossomed from that. He just became the performer. Now, if I go to a national show, he's like, what did you bring me out for this rubbish for? Like, where are all the people? We put him in a big stadium, and if I'm going in through the warm up and I just put Brett's voice on, I'm like, "Come on, mate, come on, we got to go in." He's just like, "Oh, we're doing this again." And
it's performance time.
Turns it on.
Yeah.
And he's a very lazy horse from nature, so he taught me a lot about how to teach a horse to really want to do the job more than you. And that's also, a lot of people recognized in the Brett show that, he's got the most useless rider on board who's giving no support or help whatsoever. But yet this horse is happily doing, all of the Grand Prix. Not in his first one, of course. He does the famous standing still piaffing while the rider's piaffing. Brett's piaffing more than him. But since then, some of the World Cup finals, he's, I remember in Olympia, Charlotte was warming up for Allegro and we were there together chatting. And of course, the warm-up was full of people. Yeah. And, my horse sort of thought that they were all there for him. And then he's like walking and I'm chatting to Charlotte and he's looking at Vallejo like, what are you doing, you peasant? Go on the inside. I've got to be near the rail because all these people are here to give me the attention.
Bless him.
Afterwards, I have to say, did you know who that was?
Yeah.
Oh, bless his socks. He's really flourished with Brett, hasn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. I have to ask Brett if I can borrow him sometimes for a real competition.
Oh, that's so fantastic, Tristan. Honestly, they're such wonderful stories, and it's just been such a pleasure to chat to you. So I guess we better wind up, but before we do that, we need to make sure that we give people all the information of where to find you. So your website, the TRT Method, is that correct? And that's where they can get your subscribe to your programs and have a look at some of your work.
Yeah, that's right. trtmethod.com, and of course you can find me everywhere on Instagram, and also TRT Method on Instagram and Facebook and all those places. So if you remember my initials, TRT, then you can find me just about everywhere.
Easy. Oh, sensational. That's great. All right, well, on that happy note, we'll leave it there and let you get started or finish the rest of your morning. So this has been the Equestrian Experience with myself, Amanda Ross, my co-host, Bex Mason, and this episode's guest, Tristan Tucker of the TRT Method. To send in your questions for our up-and-coming episodes, enter our competitions and access our other episodes, be sure to visit the equestrianexperiencepodcast.com. You can also follow us at Amanda Ross Equestrian and at Bex Mason SJ. And as Tristan mentioned, find him at the TRT Method or Tristan Tucker _TRT. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Fantastic. Awesome. So up until next time, have a great equestrian experience, everyone. And thanks again, Tristan and Bex.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me.